So this is lecture 4 in the series of lectures on biological membranes. This is the disclaimer that it is meant for you and it should not be used for any other purpose, copied or posted on any site without the permission of author, that is me. And some of the pictures in the presentation have been taken from public domain websites or popular books to make the topic easy to understand. The credit for such pictures remains with the original publisher. Okay, so membrane transport is our next topic. So by now, you know that membrane, because of the lipid bilayer, they are intrinsically impermeable to polar and charged species. When I say charged species, basically I mean to say ions. Na plus, K plus, Cl minus, SCO3 minus, Mg2 plus, Ca2 plus, all these are ions. So membranes, because of the lipid bilayer, structurally they are made up of lipid bilayer. They're intrinsically impermeable to polar molecules and charged species. These polar molecules and charged species cannot pass through the biological membrane easily. So does it mean that they can never pass? That is not the answer. The answer is transport of such species takes place through channels and pumps. As I told you in one of my earlier lectures, that all over the membrane, biological membranes, you have different types of channels and pumps. And transport of these polar molecules and charged species primarily takes place through channels and pumps. And what are these channels and pumps? Channels and pumps are transmembrane assemblies of allosteric proteins. While discussing proteins, we also said that all the dynamic functions of biological membranes are carried out by membrane proteins. Whether it is channels, whether it is pumps, whether it is receptors, they are all made up of proteins. What is meant by allosteric proteins? Allosteric proteins means a protein which has got more than one binding site. That is called as allosteric protein. So that also we studied in semester 1 in enzymology. So they are transmembrane assemblies, means proteins which are intrinsic in nature, transmembrane, in nature, which span the membrane width. The lipid bilayer of the membrane, they are called as transmembrane proteins. So they are transmembrane assemblies of allosteric proteins located on the membrane. Okay, what is the fundamental difference between these channels and pumps? So channels allow massive, please remember, massive and rapid flow in thermodynamically downhill direction. Means an ion can move in from its higher concentration to its lower concentration. This is called as thermodynamically downhill direction. Thermodynamically downhill direction. So you have a higher concentration of a particular ion here, outside or inside. This is the compartment, this is the bilayer, let's say. Okay, and here it is, the concentration of that ion is low. So through channels, an ion or a charged species will move from its higher concentration to its lower concentration in a thermodynamically downhill direction. Okay, and the flow is massive, right? Whereas in case of pump, it allows flow against a concentration gradient. Means you are moving from concentration of an ion is moving from its lower concentration to higher concentration. So this is through pumps. It is uphill. Okay, it is going against the concentration gradient. So we call it as uphill. This is downhill. Whereas in case of pumps, it is uphill. And here the flow is not that great. Flow of ions or whatever charged species or polar species molecule is there, it's not that high here through the pumps. Whereas in case of channels, it is like floodgates. Once you open, there is a massive flow of ions across the channel, right? In case of channels, there is no energy is required. It's a passive transport. Because it is downhill, it doesn't require any input of energy. Whereas in case of pump, since it is uphill, it is against the concentration gradient, it requires energy. And therefore it is called as active transport. So energy can be supplied directly by the hydrolysis of ATP, or energy can be supplied by some other high energy component. It can be direct supply of energy, it can be indirect supply of energy, but nonetheless, input of energy is required. So these are the two fundamental differences between channels and pumps. So let us understand and begin with channels. So channels, we have two types of channels. We have what are called as ligand gated channels. These channels have gate. These are not free channels, free openings. Okay, there are some mechanism whereby as and when needed, these channels can be opened, and when not in need, the channels can be closed. So you have two types of channels where the gate is made up of a compound or a molecule. It is called as ligand gated channel. And for example, acetylcholine receptor channel. ACH means acetylcholine. Acetylcholine receptor channel is an example of ligand gated channel. Okay. There is other type of channel which is called as voltage gated channel, where the opening and closing is regulated by change in voltage, and therefore they're called as voltage gated channels. An example of voltage gated channel is sodium channel. So you have two types of channels, two categories of channels you can see. One is ligand gated channel, where the opening and closing is regulated by a ligand molecule, whereas in case of voltage gated channel, the opening and closing is regulated by the change in voltage. So let us understand the acetylcholine receptor channel, which is a ligand gated channel. We begin with what is acetylcholine. So what happens during the propagation of nerve impulse? A nerve is made up of a relay chain of nerve fibers, nerve cells. So one nerve cell ends, this is the ending of the first nerve cells, and the second nerve cell starts here. So the nerve impulse has to be, transferred to the next nerve cell. Next nerve cell will land over here, and then this nerve cell will end over here, and the next nerve cell will start there beyond, right? So there is some gap here, which is called a synaptic cleft. So in the presynaptic membrane, in the preceding nerve cell, at the end, which is called as presynaptic membrane, it is filled with something like 1,000 vesicles containing a small molecule called neurotransmitter. It's a diffusible molecule, small diffusible molecule called neurotransmitter. And the nerve impulse is propagated from one nerve cell to the next nerve cell with the help of these neurotransmitters. These small diffusible molecules, with the help of these small diffusible molecules, the nerve impulse will be propagated across the synaptic cleft. Acetylcholine, ACH in short, is one such neurotransmitter. It is one of the neurotransmitters. There are others also, but this one is a major neurotransmitter, acetylcholine. A nerve impulse causes release of acetylcholine from vesicles into the cleft. So as soon as nerve impulse reaches here at the end of the nerve cell, as I told you, there are about 1,000 vesicles which each one carries something like 300 molecules of acetylcholine. So nerve impulse, when it reaches here, it causes release of acetylcholine from these 1,000 vesicles into this cleft here. Here. Okay, and as a result of that, in the cleft, the level of acetylcholine goes up from 10 nanomolar to 500 micromolar. So there is a massive increase in the level of acetylcholine here in the synaptic cleft. Why there is an increase? Because when the nerve impulse reaches here, there are about 1,000 vesicles, each carrying about 300 molecules of acetylcholine. All of them, they will release their content, acetylcholine, into the cleft. And as a result of that, the concentration, the level of acetylcholine in the synaptic cleft will increase from 10 nanomolar to about 5,000 micromolar. Okay. And you can see there are some, purple colored things drawn over here, this. These are receptors. These are receptors for what? These are receptors for acetylcholine. In the postsynaptic membrane, it should be post. This is pre. and this is postsynaptic membrane. So in the postsynaptic membrane, towards the in the cleft, you have these receptors where acetylcholine will bind. And binding of acetylcholine to receptor does what? Let me tell you in the next figure. So binding of acetylcholine to its receptors on the postsynaptic membrane does what? This membrane is polarized. When acetylcholine binds to the receptor, it causes opening of cation specific channels here. There are cation specific channels here. So when cation specific channels here in the postsynaptic membrane, okay. So when acetylcholine binds to the receptors, it causes opening of cation specific channels. Acetylcholine is a ligand. As soon as it binds, those channels gets opened. They are acetylcholine receptor channel. Okay, they're cation specific channel. Cations means both sodium and potassium can pass through it. But since the gradient of potassium across the membrane is huge, is massive, a lot of sodium from outside, from the synaptic cleft, is transported. There is a massive flow of sodium across the membrane, across the postsynaptic membrane. A lot of sodium flows from the cleft into the postsynaptic membrane. Small amount of potassium from inside goes out as well. But since the gradient of sodium, the difference in concentration of sodium in the cleft and in the postsynaptic membrane is very high, is very steep. And as a result of that, sodium flow is much greater than the flow of potassium. Massive amount of sodium ions will come into the cleft. And sodium being positively charged, what happens? It causes depolarization of this postsynaptic membrane. See, here it is outside is positive and inside is negative. But when massive amount of sodium gets in, the inside becomes positive. Inside becomes positive. Why inside is getting positive? Please understand, because there is a massive flow of sodium ions across. There are cation specific channels. Those channels are specific for cations. They are specific for both sodium as well as potassium. But sodium is preferentially transported across. The reason is that the gradient of sodium across is very steep, whereas the gradient of potassium from across the membrane, potassium is higher in the postsynaptic membrane and low in the cleft, but the gradient is not that steep. So small amount of potassium goes out, but massive amount of sodium comes in, and as a result of that, there is a depolarization. This wave of depolarization is nothing but nerve impulse. So nerve impulse then propagates into this next nerve cell. So this nerve cell will also end here. For example, it ends here. So there is again there will be a synaptic cleft. So this is the third nerve cell. So again, across this synaptic cleft, the nerve impulse will be propagated through the neurotransmitter. Here you will have these neurotransmitter vesicles, about 1,000 of them, about 300 of them, each carrying about 1,000 molecules of acetylcholine. So that is how, in a relayed manner, nerve impulse is propagated. Okay, from your brain to your toe, the nerve is made up of number of nerve cells in this particular fashion. It is just not one cell, it's a relay of nerve cells. And the impulse is propagated across the nerve cells using neurotransmitter. So this is what is happening when acetylcholine is released into the cleft, the concentration goes up. In the postsynaptic membrane, there are receptors. They're called as acetylcholine receptors. These are ligand-gated channels. Okay, so acetylcholine receptor channel, it is a ligand-gated channel. Acetylcholine will bind to the receptor, and binding causes opening of cation-specific channels in the postsynaptic membrane. Both sodium and potassium can pass through, but sodium is preferentially transported across from cleft into the postsynaptic membrane because of the very steep concentration gradient. Okay, and as a result of massive flow of sodium, what happens? The membrane gets depolarized, and the depolarization is nothing but a new nerve impulse that has been generated. And acetylcholine, which is bound to the receptor here, and all this happens in millisecond, microsecond. All these are microsecond, nanosecond kinetics. That means microsecond means 10 to the power minus 3 of a second. So everything happens very quickly. It doesn't take time because the message has to go from your brain to the toe very quickly. So these are all microsecond, nanosecond kinetics. Microsecond का मतलब होता है 10 to the power minus 3 of a second. So millisecond, microsecond, nanosecond kinetics है ये. Acetylcholine, which is bound to the receptor, doesn't remain bound forever. There is an enzyme called acetylcholine esterase in the postsynaptic here. The enzyme is a membrane-bound enzyme. Okay, sorry, here. In the synaptic cleft, there is an enzyme called acetylcholine esterase. This is a membrane-bound enzyme. So what does it do? It will hydrolyze the acetylcholine after about a millisecond into its component acetate and choline. And as soon as acetylcholine is hydrolyzed, the channels will be closed. That means nerve impulse has passed through the cleft. It has gone into the next nerve cell. Again, same thing will happen in the junction of the second and third nerve cell. Same thing will happen at the junction of the third and fourth nerve cell, like that. Okay. And after a millisecond, the bound acetylcholine is hydrolyzed into its component acetate and choline. And as soon as acetylcholine is hydrolyzed, the channels will be closed again because that ligand is no longer there. So let us understand this acetylcholine receptor channel, AChRC. AChRC, in short, with respect to three things. What is its structure? What is the mechanism of opening and closing? And what is the mechanism of ion selectivity? Why it is selective only for cations? Why not anions, means Cl or SCO3 minus can pass through it? Why it is selective for cations, that means sodium or potassium? How does binding of acetylcholine, causes it to makes it open? Okay. And what is its structural component? With respect to these three aspects, we will study this acetylcholine receptor channel. Now let us understand the structure first. Now this acetylcholine receptor channels, they have been isolated from electric argon of torpedo. Torpedo is a fish which is found in sea, in ocean. So from the electric organ of torpedo, this fish, this acetylcholine receptor channels have been isolated because they are present in very high concentration, in high proportion in the electric organ of this particular fish. There may be about 25,000 or so per square inch of this electric organ of torpedo. So they are present in very high proportion, high number in the electric organ of torpedo, and therefore it becomes very easy to isolate them from that particular organ. The molecular weight is about 268 kilodalton. And it's a pentamer. Pentamer means it is made up of 5 subunits. There are 4 types of subunits. There are 2 alpha subunits, 1 beta subunit, 1 gamma, and 1 delta. So in all 5, but there are 4 types. There are 2 alpha, 1 beta, 1 gamma, and 1 delta. Each of the alpha subunit has a binding site for acetylcholine. So I told you that these are proteins. These channels and pumps are made up of oligomeric proteins. Oligomer means having more than one binding site. So alpha subunit has got, each of the 2 alpha subunits of acetylcholine receptor channel has got a acetylcholine binding site. This receptor shows pentagonal symmetry. मतलब अब इसका अगर आप view देखेंगे top view, so you will find that it shows a pentagonal symmetry. Okay. This is the top view. So you can imagine I have taken a picture from the top. I have cut it here. Okay, and then taken a picture from the top. So you can see it looks like a pentagonal symmetry. The 5 rod-shaped subunits span the membrane. They are membrane spanning proteins. You can see here 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So all of them are membrane spanning. This is the lipid bilayer, and all of them are spanning across the bilayer of the membrane. So they are membrane spanning protein or intrinsic protein or integral proteins. The channel has a mean diameter of 65 angstrom. इसका mean diameter जो है, this will be diameter. Here. So here it is more, here it is less, here again it is more. So the mean diameter is around 65 angstrom units. And it protrudes about 60 angstrom in the cleft. So this is the cleft. This is the synaptic membrane, postsynaptic membrane. And this is the postsynaptic membrane here. Okay. This is the cleft side. So it protrudes about 65 angstrom into the cleft, synaptic cleft. So you understand, I hope you understand what is meant by cleft here. So this is cleft. So it is protruding into the cleft like this. How much is the how much does it protrude? About 60 angstrom in the cleft. And in the cytosolic side, this is the cytosolic side in the postsynaptic membrane, it protrudes about 20 angstrom. So this is about 20 angstrom here. Whereas about 60 angstrom in the cleft. The pore of the channel, right in the center here, there is a pore of the channel. It runs along the axis of the channel. So it's a hollow thing which you cannot see. So there is a pore going across the center of the channel like this. Okay, runs across the axis of the channel at both ends, here as well as here. It is wide. It is about 20 angstrom. The pore openings are wide, okay, 20 angstrom. Whereas in the center here, it narrows down. It narrows down. So the pore is like this. Let me draw it once again for you here. So at both the ends, its mouth is wide, and somewhere in the center, it narrows down. So there is about 10 angstrom diameter is there in the center, somewhere here. Okay. So please understand, you can visualize it. It shows pentagonal symmetry, and means when you cut it from here and you see a top view, you will find these kinds of what you can say structure, and it protrudes about 60 angstrom into the cleft and 20 angstrom into the cytoplasm, cytosolic side in the postsynaptic membrane. And right in the center there is a pore. It is hollow. This is the channel, membrane pore of the channel, and it runs all along the axis of the channel. At both the ends, at both the mouths, it is wide, about 20 angstrom in diameter, whereas in the center it narrows down here. It narrows down, it becomes about 10 angstrom. So what is the mechanism of opening and closing? So having understood the structure, let us understand how the channel gets opened and how the channel gets closed. Opening of channel requires 2 molecules of acetylcholine. The 2 molecules of acetylcholine must bind to 2 alpha subunits sequentially. So channel is closed, C means closed. The first molecule of acetylcholine comes and bind, and this all takes place very rapidly. As I told you, these are all microsecond kinetics, all taking place quickly. So the first molecule of acetylcholine will bind, the channel still remains closed. The second molecule will come and bind. You have A2C, the channel is still closed, and then immediately in about 30 microsecond, after binding of the second acetylcholine molecule, this channel will get opened. A2OO means open. Okay, A2O means the channel will become open. And it doesn't remain open forever. As I told you, it will remain open for about a millisecond. Binding of acetylcholine causes this channel, particular channel, to get opened, right? And doesn't remain open forever. The acetylcholine will be hydrolyzed by, there is an enzyme called acetylcholine esterase. And as a result of that, when acetylcholine is hydrolyzed, this will again return back to the closed state. Therefore, these are two-way arrows. So opening and closing takes place like this. Now the question that comes is, what is the biochemistry? How binding of acetylcholine to its receptor and the postsynaptic membrane causes this channel to open. So as I said, when you take the top view, you see these kinds of 5 hollows. Each one is representing one particular subunit. So there are 2 alpha subunit, one is beta, one is gamma, and one is delta, right? And this is the hollow, this is the pore. And in the closed state, the pore is occluded by amino acids having large bulkier side chain. L means these are the amino acids with a large R groups, bulkier R groups. Isoleucine, leucine, valine, phenylalanine, lysine. These are some of the examples of amino acids which has got a very bulkier R group, bulkier side chain. So at one particular point, in all the peptides, all the polypeptides, these are nothing but polypeptides. These are proteins, alpha, beta, gamma, and delta. At one particular point in closed state, they have, all of them have amino acids with bulkier side groups, R groups, bulkier side chains. And as a result of that, that central pore, okay, this is the central pore, that remains occluded, that remains closed, because you have bulkier side chains, all of them protruding into the pore. There is a limited space over there, so all that space gets occupied by the R groups of these amino acids. All of them are present at the same place. Okay. Now what happens when acetylcholine comes and bind to these alpha subunits? One molecule each. It causes a conformational change. It causes conformational change not only to the alpha subunit, but all beta, gamma, and delta, all subunits undergo a conformational change. And what is that conformational change? They rotate on their axis. This is the axis. This is the axis for this. This is the axis for this, the center. So they rotate on their axis. So this beta chain will rotate like this. It will rotate like this. As a result of that, that L, the amino acid with a bulkier side chain, it goes out, and there is one S. There is an amino acid with a smaller R group. It will occupy the central place here. As a result of rotation, because of a conformational change, okay, the amino acid with the bulkier R group, they move out from the pore. And the pore is now occupied by amino acid with a smaller side chains, S. Okay, and what are those amino acids? Glycine, alanine, serine, cysteine. Okay, so these amino acids now will be occupying the position facing the pore, wall of the pore, and as a result of that, there will be some space available here. So this space is now available. So this channel is open. See the ingenuity, and here there is no space, and therefore the channel is closed. Such beautiful mechanism nature has created, right? Just binding of acetylcholine to this alpha subunit causes conformational change in these proteins. These individual subunits, they rotate on their axis. As a result of their rotation, the amino acids with the bulkier R groups, which were occupying the pore, the position facing the pore, they will be rotating sideways, and the amino acids with the smaller R groups, they will be occupying the position facing the pore, and as a result of that, all over the entire length of the pore, there will be amino acid with this smaller side chain and the pore will get opened. At the mouth, it will be slightly wider. In the center, it will be, because of the small diameter, it will be narrow. Okay, but you can see here, there is no space or limited space here, but here the space has become more. So this is called as opening of channel. So very ingenious, very novel, very innovative, what you can say, mechanism of channel opening. So binding is necessary and therefore we call it as a ligand gated channel. Acetylcholine acts as a ligand. Okay. So does it remain open all through? And the answer, as I said, no. In biological system, whatever gets activated has to come back to its ground state. This is a thumb rule. So inactivation is affected. I told you it remains open for about a millisecond. And when it is bound, the channel remains open for about a millisecond. There will be massive inward flow of sodium from cleft into the cell, and there will be small amount of potassium flow from cell into the cleft. Okay. So after about a millisecond, there will be inactivation of the inactivation, and inactivation is affected by enzymatic degradation of acetylcholine. Acetylcholine esterase, ECH esterase, is a membrane-bound enzyme in the postsynaptic membrane. Postsynaptic membrane is, this is the postsynaptic membrane. Okay, and these are receptors here to which acetylcholine is bound. So acetylcholine is bound here, right? Binding has resulted in opening of the channels. So channels are opened. These are cation specific channels which have opened, and as a result of opening of the channel, sodium has moved in. There is a massive flow of sodium, right? Small amount of potassium goes out. Why there is a massive flow? Because the gradient across the membrane of the sodium is very high, right? Now, next door there are membrane bound enzymes. Here there is a membrane bound enzyme. And what is that enzyme? That enzyme is acetylcholine esterase. That enzyme is acetylcholine esterase. It's a membrane bound enzyme. It has got a very high turnover number. This enzyme is one of those three enzymes which are said to achieve kinetic perfection: triose phosphate isomerase, catalase, and acetylcholine esterase. It has got a very high turnover number. Turnover number we have studied in semester 1, that it is the ability of the enzyme to convert substrate into product per second. So very high number of substrates gets converted into product per second. We call it as a very high turnover number, means the enzyme is catalytically very efficient. Okay. So what does it do? Acetylcholine esterase enzyme will act on it, and it will be broken. It will be hydrolyzed into its component acetate and choline. Right. So as soon as acetylcholine is hydrolyzed, means as soon as acetylcholine disappears, gets broken down into its component, the channels will be closed again. Channels will be closed again means what? There will be again a conformational change, and all those 5 subunits will now rotate in an anti-clockwise manner. So the pore will be occupied by amino acid with bulkier side chain, and the amino acid with the smaller side chain will move sidewards. As a result of that, the pore will get occluded by the amino acid side chains and it will be closed. Now, organofluorophosphates, these are a class of insecticides developed. What do? They inactivate the acetylcholine esterase. ये इंसेक्टिसाइड है, ये हमारे खेतों में एग्रीकल्चरल फील्ड में इस्तेमाल होते हैं. तो जब ये मैकेनिज्म पता चला, उसके बाद में ये डेवलप हुए. Organofluorophosphates, they will inhibit this acetylcholine esterase. They bind tightly and form a stable covalent phosphoryl enzyme complex with the ACHE. So acetylcholine esterase will be inhibited. It will not be able to, hydrolyze this acetate, acetylcholine into acetate and choline, and as a result of that, the channel will remain in the open state, and the insect will die because of the excessive nervous activation. Now the third thing is, what is the mechanism of ion selectivity? I told you that these channels are cation specific. That means only cations can pass through it easily. So if you see that picture again, so these are only two subunits shown over here. So there is a third one here, there is a fourth one here, and there is a fifth one here from above. There is a third one here, there is a fourth one here, and there is a fifth one from above like this. Okay. So what was found out is that there are three concentric rings, means at three positions along the individual subunits, you have amino acids with negative side chains. Amino acids with negative side chain means you have aspartic acid and you have glutamic acid. These are all negatively charged amino acids. So at the same position, at three places along the individual subunits, you have amino acids with negative side chains. So they form a ring of negatively charged amino acid, three places, towards the mouth, in the center, and towards the cytosolic end. And because of the presence of negatively charged amino acid, this chloride cannot pass through it because of the electrostatic repulsion. Sodium can pass through it easily. So this is the mechanism of ion selectivity.